Right.
Jim obviously been doing it for years, knows what he's doing, so he's obviously been working on it.
I know. This is not quite cheese yet.
I'm an art, thanks very much, lads.
Yes, well done. Well done, guys.
You said to me that I was finished talking to you.
I let you be finished, eh?
Speeches are almost as long as yours, Billy.
Almost.
Next up, we have a man, a very good friend of David Ross's, from Crantana, Jim Singer.
Yeah.
Try speaking more an English sounding voice today rather than the usual Doric accent, or some of you might feel like I'm coming from a different planet or something. As far as Gary goes, when he speaks on the phone up at 11:30, it's more like 2:30 in the morning. Anyway, it's a privilege that I've been asked to come and say a few words today. Any event regarding William Wallace is a special occasion, and today is probably extra special for myself that I've been asked to speak. It's both significant and iconic for myself, because we're celebrating the homecoming of the letter, which is thought to be the possession of William Wallace. The letter dates back from November 7th, 1300, so that makes it 712-year-old. It's one of the few remaining artefacts which actually has a direct link to William Wallace. A fragment of the letter itself was sent to King Philip from King Philip of Spain, France, to the Vatican, where he was asked to give assistance to Wallace on the business he had with the Pope at the time being Boniface VIII. The fact that it mentions William Wallace by name is evidence enough that he either went to Rome or he intended to. The business which he had with the Pope is very unclear and still open for debate. When it comes to William Wallace, it's amazing by any standards to think that his name is not only remembered after 700 years, but is held in such high regard as our national hero. It's just a pity that the technology isn't what it was today that it was then, so we can learn more about Wallace's early life. Instead we'll have to relate to the accounts of Blind Harry, which unfortunately lacking in historical account leaves the book into criticism. Having said that, Blind Harry's book was the second biggest bestseller in Scotland, and still is, only to the Bible. Wallace enters into our history books in 1297 when he slays William Heselrigg, the English sheriff of Lanark. From this point, he not only becomes known, but he also becomes outlawed. From this, the documentation we have on Wallace shows all the major events in his life. And there's still little surviving artefacts which give us an overall view of what his life was like. So to have this piece of letter back is of very historic importance, as well as very big historian's dream. Speaking of historians, I met a man in Aberdeen about 20 years ago in a book shop, not knowing that we'd become very close friends. This man spoke very passionately about Wallace and captivated the audience which he had around him. His knowledge on Wallace was the best I'd ever heard, and still, in fact, to this day, Hannah met anybody that came close to the knowledge he had. He spoke very extensively on his research, which included the letter related to Wallace, which he knew was being held captive in Kew, where in London. His dream was to see the letter returned one day to Scotland. But although he wanted as much as he wanted to see the letter go back, his mind was distracted with other events, and that was organising a funeral for William Wallace, a spiritual funeral for William Wallace. that he didn't have or was able to get 700 years before. In case you haven't realised who I'm speaking about, the name of the man was David R. Ross. The series of events which spun off from David's idea about the 700th anniversary snowballed, not only bringing thousands together, but his overall achievement turned out to be quite immense, particularly at a time when the Labour Party, the Labour government here in Scotland, did nothing to celebrate Wallace whatsoever, instead favouring to celebrate the Battle of Waterloo. Apart from the government here, there's particularly all the unionist parties as well, because they were feared to actually mention the name of Wallace or have anything to do with it in case it brought any lines of nationalism. And I've got to agree with in this case, it actually did. After the events of 2005, David continued to research and write his books, but he also rekindled his efforts in bringing the letter back home. The campaign he began to return the letter to Scotland unfortunately couldn't be fulfilled. He passed away on the 2nd of January 2010, only at the age of 51. David Ross achieved many things in his life, and I respect him for it. But he considered the work around the 23rd of August 2005 to be his most important. But if he was here today, and I'm sure he is, he'd have been saying this date is just as important as then. Having the letter back where it belongs is an iconic symbol similar to that of the Stone of Destiny. But we should also remind ourselves that both are actually still on loan from England. Ironic as that might seem. The Wallace exhibition, which includes the two letters from the period, has come at a much needed time in Scotland, where we've had to put up with all this British propaganda about the Olympic Games and the Queen's Jubilee. So to me, the letter being back in Scotland should not be here just a short-term basis, or long-term. It should be here in his rightful home.
Here, here.
And I'm actually failing to understand why it took so long for the letter to be returned from England since it was founded in Tower of London in 1830. I consider the Wallace letter to be a legacy left by Wallace for Scotland, for the people of Scotland, for William Wallace as a Scottish patriot, a nationalist and a freedom fighter, not a British one. Scotland is changing, and in the next 2 years the people have a major decision to make about their future. I know this is not a time and place to speak about politics or independence, but sweep that aside, we must remember what Wallace stood for, Davy stood for, and everybody else that's gone before him stood for. In relation to independence, I'd just like to think that when we do get it, all our treasures will actually come back to Scotland, come back to our rightful home instead of being spread over the world.
Yeah.
David used to say, things always came back to Wallace, so I'll finish with two relevant quotes. Wallace made Scotland. He is Scotland. He is the symbol of all things that's best, purest and truest, and most heroic in our national life. You cannot figure yourself Scotland without Wallace. So long as the grass grows and the water runs, while the mist curls through the corries and the hills, the name of Wallace will live. That was written by Robert Boutin Cunningham Graham on Wallace Day in 1920. Finally, a proverb by his uncle from Boers Chronicle in 1440. This is truth I tell you, of all things freedom is most fine. Never submit, my son, to the bonds of slavery entwined. We just hope by 2016 more bonds of slavery will be cut forever.
Yeah.